the suppression, the use of marijuana.
And so the song he picked was Fall For You. Like, tonight will be the night. I fucking lost it. I was like, I haven't thought about this song in like 15 years.
Not
and
true.
Like,
you thought about it when you sent me that video for Koi.
did I?
Because that was the song that was playing.
Oh, that's fair.
But aside
Oh
from
yeah,
that,
but it wasn't like the song. It was like
yeah,
a shitty
someone's
yeah.
stupid rendition of it.
Everyone was like, oh my God, I haven't thought about this song in forever. And that was the song that got the most tips because everyone was just up there like, tonight will be the night.
That song's going to be stuck in my head now, except for it's the one that was on TikTok a while ago, really
Poorly?
Huh?
Like really poorly?
Like overemphasize like the emo accent. Sort of.
Yeah.
I think that's the one that we were
Tonight will
talking.
be the night that I will fall for you.
Yeah, that's the one that I sent to you.
Yeah.
My voice is going to be maybe a little raspy today, my friends.
From singing Secondhand Serenade so hard.
Yeah, and also Adele and there's Ariana Grande and
I do
Rihanna.
love going back to just like early 2000s. And I mean early 2000s. I don't mean
Yeah.
2010.
Oh my God.
I mean
The aughts.
the actual
And then
2000s.
right at the beginning, when we got there, they were playing Britney Spears back to back, Crazy, and which other one did they do?
Toxic? Womanizer?
No, it was it doesn't matter.
Baby?
No, not Hit Me Baby One More Time, but I can't think of what it was.
Oops, I did it again. Circus.
Yes, I think it was Oops, I Did It Again.
Okay.
So my voice is maybe going to be a little bit grumblier.
But I thought the old lady dropped it into the ocean at the end.
Yeah.
I went down and got it for you.
Anyway, should
Lucky
we
was my favorite.
The story of a girl named Lucky.
That's when I should have known I was emo. Whatever. We're here. Okay. What we decided on the intro was
We don't know
we
what the
don't
intro
know what the
is.
intro is. That's right. Okay, that's going to be the thing from now on. So sorry. Consistency is really difficult. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
I'm Ryan.
ADHD. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Tia, and I'm hosting today.
And we're the ADHD queens.
Yay, we did it. Thanks, Ryan, for
You're
bringing
welcome.
us together.
We just woke up.
We did, actually, quite literally.
Jamie was up until 1 a.m. and she made it here first. So
I'm very
I
impressed
did
by
with
you.
coffee.
With coffee. Bless you. Bless you so much. And I don't mean that in the southern way. I mean that genuinely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What book are we talking about today, Tia?
I know what book because I read it and I really enjoyed reading it. So hold on.
I thought it was lovely. Did you finish this, Ryan?
yes, I
Okay,
did.
just checking. 2 days ago, I asked Ryan if he started it, and he said no.
But that seems to be
But that's
pretty
okay.
But I
standard
had to
procedure.
drive 6 hours yesterday.
Yeah,
and
that's what I figured.
Yeah.
I figured you would get it, but I just thought I would check before we started talking about this.
This book, when I get to it, we're doing for Japan because it's from Japan and written by a Japanese author and translated into English. Where is it? Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Super lovely, simple, tiny book that has, I think, 2 more books after this. So if you guys have any
Yes.
interest, if they are just as charming, I will definitely be.
Oh, I will
them
absolutely
up.
be picking them up.
I was very happy to read this book at this time because I keep having potential breakdowns because of the state of the world and America just turning into a bigger dumpster fire than it already was. So in this book, there's a little cafe kind of in a random little part of town.
Yeah. Hole in the wall.
Yeah, just
situation.
like in the basement-ish, so you have to walk down these stairs to get into it. It's real chill. Not a whole lot of people know it exists, so it's even better. This seems like a place I would vibe in real hard. There is a shop owner, his wife, their friend, I believe that's Kazu is their friend.
The barista.
It doesn't really, it doesn't
Yeah.
really, they're all close. That's all
Yeah.
that you get. So it's Nagara, Kei is his wife, and Kazu is the barista, very stern lady. And then you have people come into the cafe and interact with them. And then as you get to know everyone, including the like people that run the cafe, they have these little snippets where you go back in time and learn this nice little charming story where it seems kind of sad at first, but every single time it kind of wraps up in this nice little comforting, like, it's not as bad. It's going to be better. Things are going to feel okay. You just have to learn like this small lesson to be able to feel that.
Yeah. The future. It's like the future holds
Yes.
possibilities.
Yeah, you can't change the past, but the future is still there, yours for the taking.
So the way that you get taken into these little snippets is that the person who is like the main person in each story actually goes and travels in time. So they either go to the past, or the last one they do go to the future. So it's really adorable. The whole premise is that there are these very strict rules. You have to sit in a very specific seat. You have to stay in that seat the entire time. You can't engage with anyone that's not in the cafe, and you have to do it all before the coffee gets cold. That's where the title comes from. And I think there's another rule.
Hang on. I have the Wikipedia up just in case I couldn't remember everything. There is only one seat in the cafe that allows time travel. The seat is only available when the ghost goes to the bathroom.
Yes, the ghost is
there's always a
essential.
ghost sitting in the seat, so you have to wait until she goes to the bathroom. Once back in time, customers can't leave the seat. Only people in the past who can be met are people who have visited the cafe.
Yep.
Whatever happens in the past, the present won't change. So that's like one of the biggest ones. Besides the coffee, you have to finish the coffee before it runs cold, and finishing the coffee will send you back to where you came from. And anything that happens, it literally doesn't matter where you are in the present. If someone has left, if someone has died, if someone whatever, they will still have done that thing in the future.
Right. It actually sets it up so that no matter what you do, something will adjust to make sure that that still happens.
Which is where I was like, okay, but that means the present does change.
The present can change, like
But
your present, but the future cannot.
Like, you can't change the past to make it such a like a altering.
Yes, but so the whole time they're like, nothing you do in the past will change the present, but then it says like if you shoot somebody, that like all the things will fall into place. But that means like that if you shoot somebody, that man will have a scar.
Well, sure.
So it's like
Sure.
it's still going to change a little bit on the future.
That's
Yeah.
But yeah.
That is true, but yeah, it's saying
like the premise is like big alterations to your history will not happen.
no one can die
Yeah.
or not die. No one can, not be like wherever they are.
The circumstances
in the future,
surrounding how you get to the place that you are in the
Yes,
present
could
might change,
change.
but you will end up in the same
exact
situation.
Yeah, that's
which-
fair.
yeah.
Because that's why I was okay. So at some point we go through. Is it 3 stories total, or is it technically 4 because
It's
of the last
4.
one?
4.
Okay, so there's 4 stories. The first one, you meet a character that doesn't know anything about the cafe at all. She doesn't actually know any of them, so that's how you kind of learn the rules. Is that you are interacting with this character who's learning everything. She's very. She's probably the most emotionally like agitated one out of all of them. So she is it Fumiko?
Fumiko.
Yeah. So Fumiko is sad because her boyfriend of 3 years is it 3 years? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is leaving, but she doesn't know that yet. So she's learning about him leaving to America, and she's upset because there is a inability to communicate to each other how they feel about each other. So she's mad, and so she's like, well then fine, go. And then she regrets it instantly. So she comes to the cafe and she's like, hey, so I want to go to the past. Like, I want to change what happened. And they're like, you can't do that. But she still does end up going, and she learns that her boyfriend wanted her to wait but didn't know how to say it because he has like extreme introversion based off of what I could tell.
Yeah.
And he's super insecure because she's apparently like hot to him, and he's like, I'm not hot, so why do you like me? And that impacts their ability to talk to each other.
He was autistic for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely had
Absolutely.
that. I was like, vibe, man. I totally same. But also like, damn, can't you guys just talk to each other?
I know.
But also that's like Japanese culture is like, don't share your feelings. And I'm just like,
Gonna though.
you're gonna need to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the first story. It does resolve nicely, so do read that. It's lovely.
Yeah, that one ends pretty nicely because when she's talking to him in the past, at the end, he says, like, wait for 3 years for
Yep.
me.
Yeah.
And so she realizes that, like, okay, I can't change the past, but the future is open.
Yeah.
That's the
I
first.
loved that.
Yeah, that's the first
future
time
has
we get
possibilities.
Yeah.
the moral lesson of what's going on.
And then the second one, that one.
The first
This
one is
one-
the lovers. The second one is husband and wife,
wife.
and she's a nurse, and he has Alzheimer's.
That's
Yes.
right.
This
Okay.
one-
This story stays
It's
through the
so
rest of
good.
it. It also is like heartbreaking, but also very nice at the end. Kind of. It's still kind of sad. I don't know.
It's bittersweet. It is
Yes, very
lovely and
bittersweet.
heartbreaking.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I put in my notes just like a bunch of crying emojis.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was good.
The husband and wife like really care about each other, love each other. It's wonderful. Everything's great. And then the husband develops Alzheimer's. And it's kind of hinted at later that he knew about it sooner and he wasn't ready to like talk to her about it. But she figured it out because she's a nurse and she's like, I get it. I know how to read these signs. And so she starts to try and secretly do everything she can to help him. But you can't really do a whole lot for Alzheimer's right now, sadly. So he starts to deteriorate. So he loses his ability to come home on time. He starts to go to places and repeat those places because he just doesn't remember going. He starts buying things and then not remembering it. So, frustration starts to build up. And then at the point that we meet them, he has just forgotten who she is. Mm-hmm. And she tries to make him comfortable from a nurse's standpoint. That's really important because she's just like, I'm going to remove myself so he doesn't feel uncomfortable and that he's not confused and that he can kind of just go through life. But she goes back just to see him one more time.
He wrote a letter.
Yeah. That letter, she wasn't sure what it was.
She didn't know what it was, and he wrote a letter as he was figuring out that he had Alzheimer's, and it was like his way of telling her, but then he never ends up giving it to her, and the people at the cafe tell her, like, oh, he wrote you a letter. And
Well, she shows up. He's holding a letter, and she walks up to him and is like,
because-
she's like,
Yeah.
hey. And he's like, excuse me, I'm waiting for my wife.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh. So he like says, I'm waiting to give this letter to my wife. And then she knows for sure, like, oh, he doesn't remember me at all. And also, oh, I want to see that letter.
Yeah.
What does he want to give me?
So she does get to go back. She does, after some coaxing, because he finally, when they're together in the past, he does put it together. He's like, oh, you figured it out. You know what's going on. Here's the letter.
And he knows that he figures out that she's from the future.
Yeah, because once you put the rules together and you know them, it's like, oh, they're not able to move from the seat. Got it.
And
Okay.
he's like, oh, you're sitting in a weird seat. We never sit there because there's always the ghost
there's
lady
always a
there.
lady there.
And yeah.
And then, so he gives her the letter. She does this nice little lie where she says he recovers, and she's like burst into tears. So like, it's obvious that it's not true, but he just appreciates the effort anyway. And it's like they know each other well enough to be able to establish that this was the most comforting thing she could do for him. And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah. That was when all of the sobbing emojis happened.
Yeah. And then she does end up reading the letter, but in the present time, if I remember correctly. And it's essentially like, I want you to just be my wife, and I don't want you to stick around and be a nurse. I want you to be happy. And he even tells her so much as to leave me if you can't do that any longer. And I totally support it and I get it. And she's just like, okay, I'm just going to be your wife then. And so she starts to go by her her wife
Married name.
Yeah.
Yes, married name is the word.
So she was going, people were calling her her first name, Katake, but then...
That's her maiden name.
Well, I think that's like just her name, and then
Yeah,
because
they
she
go
goes
by their last name.
Yeah, well, yeah. So then she starts going by Mrs. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Hold up, I do have it.
But yeah, when he starts to forget that he's married to her, like, because it happens in stages, he forgets that he's married to her, and then he forgets who she is altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So when he forgets that they're married, she asks people to call her by her maiden
Yeah.
name.
Yes.
So
as
that
not to confuse him.
he doesn't get confused. And then
So then she's so then she
At
says
the
it's Fusagi.
That's it. Yeah.
So then she's like, somebody calls her Katake, and she's like, "Excuse me,
I
and
am.
Mrs. Fusagi."
I'm officially married again. And that's her like effort to just be like, I don't know what the 100% the moral was. More of it.
Of that one,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's still the same.
Yeah.
Because nothing changes,
That's fair.
but everything changes.
yeah, it's just comfort.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think for her, like, that he never told her, and she kind of always wondered why, and then she realizes it's because he couldn't get himself to tell her. And
Yeah, it's
it was
tragic
just-
to realize
Yeah.
that you're going to forget someone that you care about so
Yeah.
much. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the third story is the sisters. Mm-hmm. Also super sad, but also really nice and lovely at the same time.
Yeah.
It's so fucking bittersweet. This whole thing. Is that coffee is bitter? Is that the point? So the sister is a bar owner who is a frequent person that comes through to the cafe.
She's been here like this entire time.
Yeah,
Like,
we just don't realize that's who that is.
I was listening to it, and I just kind of thought for a while that she worked there.
Yeah.
Because she was just there the whole freaking
chilling
time.
all the time. Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, no, she's not. She owns a bar somewhere else.
Apparently. She has a whole shtick where a lot of people really like her. A lot of men are trying to court her at her bar because they're like, you know how to do things and you're kind of wonderful and you're cool and you stand out. Because apparently she wears like really outlandish clothes. She's a very free spirit and like just really independent person, which is uncommon, at least when in Japan, when you're raised by Japan. That's not the most common situation. So she's the oldest sister. She's running away from her family because they had this whole plan for what they wanted from her as the eldest daughter. She ran away and was technically disowned by her parents because she dipped. And so her little sister ended up having to take on the responsibilities of running the family inn. And the oldest sister ends up thinking that from like her perspective, it would be very natural for her sister to resent her and for her sister to be like constantly trying to get her to come back in order to do the things she needed to do. But she doesn't realize that her sister has a whole different perspective on life and has different desires than her. And she learns this only after her sister dies in a really tragic car accident, which happens as she's on the way back home from trying to visit her one last time. And so the oldest sister, has a lot of like regret and remorse and just feels awful that her sister died in such a terrible way. But she doesn't want to talk about it and she pretends like it's really not a big deal at first. And then you go through her travel experience and she comes to realize all the stuff that she thought was pretty much incorrect, aside from her parents being like upset with her, which is like, well, fair. You kind of just said deuces. I don't want to do this.
Yeah. And avoided her sister. So her sister has been coming to try to see her, to talk to her forever. And she keeps being like, she's just going to try to convince me to take over running the inn. So I'm just going to avoid her.
The last time that she came to the cafe to try to talk to the older sister, the older sister actually hid behind the counter, like
Yeah.
like went behind the counter, crouched down and hid. And that's
For hours.
For
actually.
hours, yeah.
And then that's the day that she returns to talk to her sister.
The older sister is Hirai.
Hedari.
And then what's the...
I don't remember
I
the sister's
cannot
name.
remember the younger sister's name.
It starts with a K.
It's gone from me.
Is it Kumi?
Kumi.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Kumi.
Because I kept getting her confused with K,
Kaz-
and I was like,
And
no.
I kept getting confused with Kazu.
Yeah.
Too many K's, man. But yeah, so tragedy strikes. The sister does start to like recognize that she's devastated, so she does go back, sits in the seat after trying to yell at the ghost, and that's never a good thing.
Yeah,
Don't
the
pull
ghost.
on the ghost.
That's like a secret rule that they don't tell you, but Fumiko and Harai both try to like physically move the ghost, and then everyone's like, the ghost is obviously going to curse you if you do that. And it's like, well, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
You have a lot of very specific
She's a
rules,
very
and you did not say
angry
anything.
lady, but I feel like because she's stuck in that spot, like obviously,
Yeah,
she
fair
should
enough.
be.
Yeah. Oh, the ghost. If you don't drink your coffee before it's cold, you become,
the ghost.
Right. Yes. So
So-
I'm curious who the ghost is.
See, I thought that it was gonna when they tell you the story. It's like a woman who went back in time to visit her husband, and she stayed too long. And so when we got the second story, it didn't describe the ghost as being the same ghost. So I was like, are we gonna get
right.
is
We're
she
gonna
gonna
get
become the
Kotaku,
ghost? And so
yeah.
I was really worried. But then it was.
I was
not.
also wondering who the ghost was. I'm wondering if that's going to come up in a
In the
later book.
sequels,
Because
yeah.
I thought that it was going to tell us at some point,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
it didn't
it
happen.
didn't,
So
yeah.
I assume that's a sequel story.
That's fair. Yeah, I definitely was hoping that it was going to be like the last story, but here we are. It wasn't. Okay, so the sisters, their story resolves. Sadly, she finally does actually, she goes back to the day that she was hiding and goes and talks to Kumi, her younger sister, and it actually like lets her speak. Crazy. And she learns that her younger sister just wanted her to come home so they could do it together, so they could just be partners, because she's always loved her older sister and kind of like idolized her a little bit.
And their parents kind of just straight up made her raise the little sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She like was 6 years old and taking her to school with her and
Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
daycare
And
at
she-
school.
And she loved her sister. And that's when
Yeah.
she sort of like realizes that her reaction to the inn business made her kind of forget how much she loved her sister.
Yeah.
And she
So-
missed out on a lot of years of just
Upsetted.
avoiding.
Yeah. Don't avoid your problems, man. That's what I learned from this
Don't
one.
avoid your problems.
So she goes back to the future or present, and her sister's obviously not there still. She's heartbroken about it, lets herself feel it, but she does make the promise to go back to the inn and actually help her parents out and do the thing that she didn't want to do, just because she made a promise to her sister that she was going to try and do so. And
Oh yeah, the end of that one was very sad too, because the young Kumi goes to the bathroom to fix her makeup,
yeah,
and she's like, I just want to see her face again one more time, but her coffee is cold, and
Yeah.
That
and so
one
she
hurt.
has to drink the coffee. But then when she
She's
does
like,
drink the
"Peace
coffee,
out."
when they're when she's like in the steam of
Yes.
time travel, she does get to see her sister's face.
And is it Kazu or is it Kay? One of them is like, yeah, no, she just went real quick, but she promised that she'll be there. So, like, don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
I think it was Kay, because Kay is a little bit bubblier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was literally the sweetest, like, what a real one.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that was,
no. Absolute
perfect.
queen.
It's very sad.
So that one wraps up, and then we go into our final story, which happens to be.
Well, no.
Then
Yeah.
there's
There was-
the
I think-
mini future.
I think before this one was when we got that. So there was a bit of a setup.
Oh.
There was like very shortly, right before Harai,
Oh,
Yeah.
right before Harai has her whole business with her sister. There's like,
this random human comes
yeah,
back to
what's his name? What's the husband's name?
Nagara.
Nagata is just like walks in, and there's some girl
Just chilling in the
just
seat.
chilling in the seat, and he's like, okay, so she's probably from the past, or
The future.
she's from the future, so I don't know what's going on, whatever. So he's just like, hi, are you here for me? And she's like, no, silly. And then Kazu comes in and he's like, are you here for Kazu? And she's like, no. But then Kay walks in and the girl is like, yes. So she's like 18, I think it said. She's she's in her late teens, and she's like, hi, can I get a picture with you? And Kay is just like, yeah, whatever, why not? And
because she's such a nice lady.
And
She's
Kay just came in from the doctor's appointment, and Nagati.
Right.
What?
The emotions.
Just like-
Yeah. Nagati.
We made faces.
Yeah.
You can't see our faces. But
Imagine them.
Nagati
You can't. I'm sorry.
goes up and just sort of like looks at Kay, and Kay smiles and like rubs her belly.
Ugh.
And then the girl is like, can I take a photo with you? And Kay is like, yeah, whatever, why not? Goes over, takes a photo with the girl, and is like, she's like, everyone's like, that was weird, wonder who that was. And it's like, oh, yeah, I wonder who that was.
Foreshadowing.
It's
like, what?
I definitely don't know why on the day you find out you're pregnant, some 18-year-old girl is going to run into the cafe and ask to take a photo with you.
Crazy.
Wonder who that is. Got to have a degree in English to sort that one out.
Yeah. That was so... Anyway, okay. Finishing the summary.
Sorry.
There's so many
That was
feelings.
So all
that
of
was
that-
important.
That happens before
That
the
happened
sisters.
before
The sisters.
Nagati.
Correct.
And then the last story
The
is
last story.
mother and daughter.
Mother and daughter. Like, well, it's mother and child, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Technicality. My
Spoilers.
Bad. Sorry.
There's a daughter involved.
Well, you come to find out that Kay is pregnant, but you also come to learn that she's always had a heart condition and she literally just can't function because life. But
she's been just like slowly dying this entire time.
But she never lets that stop her. And that's why she's so bubbly and open to people and she doesn't judge anyone. And she's just kind of like living life
Total
as best
sweetheart.
she can. And Nagata is kind of not the opposite, but he's like a big, beefier man that just kind of like does what he needs to do. And he's a little sensitive, but like it's
Yeah.
fine. And they meet in hospital because he does some sort of heroic act, I think, and he ends up in the hospital. He has I can't remember exactly that story.
I can't remember how they met. She saw him like from afar, and she's like, "I want to marry that big burly bear."
burly guy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was like wrapped up too, so she didn't like
Yeah,
fully
she
get
called
to
him
see
the mummy man.
Yeah, because he did something really nice for someone and like sacrificed himself is what I.
Yeah,
I
can't remember.
And she's like, "Well, I'm gonna marry you," and he's like, "Well, you're gonna have to run a cafe," and she's like, "Okay." So
And
that's
then they
when
got
you
married.
realize who everyone is, like, because they don't tell you it's Nagata until later. But whatever. And then they're all happy and things are doing fine and they get used to like the heart problems. But then she's like, I want to have this baby. And he's like, I don't want you, but I do want you. Like, it's really a conundrum because I can't say that I don't want it, but I also can't say that I want you over it. And I'm just like, yeah, that's fair. So there's a whole like mental battle between them, and then Kay is just such a like sensitive physically human being that like he really strongly opposes her going to the future, but like typically he's really supportive of literally anything she wants to do.
Yeah.
So this was a whole like emotional moment between them two because he's just like, I think that something bad's going to happen to you because you're going to learn something tragic in the future, because that's just a possibility.
And no one has ever successfully gone to the future.
Right.
Because you need to be able to focus on an exact date and time. And you have to know that because you only have until the coffee runs cold. So you have to be so specific about when you're going to make sure that the person will be there.
Right.
You don't know if they're going to be there. So it's never been done before.
Bless Kazu's heart.
Kazu,
She really comes out strong at this one. She's like, I will make sure that she is there
Yep.
no matter what. And I'm just like, okay, so that was a face. I'm sorry.
there was a face. There's a lot of faces on this one. This one is so lovely and sweet and breaks your heart.
Well, and so she gets to the future. Something is wrong. Like we know that immediately. Something's off. They're not there. Nagata or Kazu are both not there.
Well, so she said, I'm going to go on my birthday in 10 years at 3 p.m.
Yes.
So she says she's going to be there 10 years, 3 in the afternoon. Which is
that's a day
1,500 hours. That's important.
Yes.
And she chooses that date because she knows that if something were to have happened to her, that her husband and child would still celebrate her birthday in some way.
They
Yeah.
would still remember her birthday for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
so they would maybe be at the cafe to like celebrate the birthday.
Unfortunately, we find out that she doesn't go 10 years. She goes 15 years. And so, like, they're
And
not
at
exactly
10 in the morning,
So things got
things
swapped.
got swapped with 10 years, 15 o'clock.
Yeah.
And got swapped to 15 years, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So she is early in the morning, 5 years late.
And of course, they wouldn't know that until she goes back to the past to be like, something happened. So she's just struggling to figure out what's going on. They're not. She finds out that Kazu and Nagata are in Hokkaido, and she's like, that's really far away. Why would they do that to me? So you kind of start to feel like, oh no, something terrible has happened, or they're just like they're avoiding her. Like, what's going on? So you slowly figure out that that's not the case. They actually end up calling the cafe and being like, hey, this is real quick. This is what the summary is. That's your daughter. Okay, bye.
Because, right when she gets there, this was like, I gasped, by the way. So she gets there, and there's a guy behind the counter that she doesn't recognize. Mm-hmm. And it says that he has like a scar over his eyebrow. And I was like, because Fumiko told us in chapter 1 that her, boyfriend that's leaving, and we don't know what happened to them, he has a scar over his eyebrow. So it's like, oh my God, why is he here? What's happening? So then
She's so confused.
and I was just like, I'm supposed to know who this is, and I do. I was very excited. So then he's like, who are you? And she's like, who are you? Where's the owner, or where's the manager? And he's like, I'm the manager.
But he says, I guess. So that implied to me like, oh, he was just for that day.
Yeah,
but
he's like,
she wasn't. There was not.
There was, it was not
wasn't
vibing.
happening.
But then this 15-year-old girl walks in, and she's like, well, that can't be my child because I'm
supposed to
10
be
years
10.
in the future. And she thinks to herself, that's that girl that came into the past from the future to get a picture with me. That must be unrelated.
Right. I was like, okay, come on.
Okay, you're smart, honey.
I know that.
Yeah. So then, Nagata calls and is like, hey, I'm going to make this super quick, but that's our daughter. Bye.
Yeah. And she's like, what? Essentially just like doesn't compute. And it's fine because it's a stressful time. It's a very short period. So she just has to figure it all out real quick. Meanwhile, we're like, we know what's happening.
Yeah. Like, we're all in the know, honey.
And then it becomes this oddly really long situation where they're like, hey, you should know who this is. But like, also I'm panicking. So I'm going to run into the back and hide because it's kind of freaky to meet your mom who you don't know, but no. And so Fumiko becomes the like hero kind of thing where she's like, you're going to talk to your mom. And she's like, you're going to talk to your daughter and it's going to be great. And you guys need to love each other. And it's really difficult for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But you do get to the point where everyone's like, okay, I'm sorry. No, it's okay. Like everything's great. She's like, feels guilty that she's only able to bring her into the world, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
And she's just like, it's not enough. And it's like, fair, but also she wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I think at the end when she finishes her coffee, I think she says something like, she says at the beginning, like, all I could do for you is bring you into the world. But then at the end, she says, like, if all I could do for you is bring you into the world, then I hope that's enough.
And then the daughter, of course, is just like, thank you, and all of this like loving stuff, something that a 15-year-old probably wouldn't actually do, but it was just like
Yeah.
because of the
But
circumstances.
she has known her whole life that this is the day because like everybody knows. Because when Kay goes back in time, she tells everybody, so
Yeah.
they all know what day she's actually going to show up. So then they're like, she has had to figure out how she's going to act, and then she just like could not until she comes back out, and
which
then
I
she's like,
felt
okay.
like was very similar characteristics for the two of them. They both were just like, like
Yes.
we had plans, but it didn't work.
Yes.
It's very sweet, and they finally have their moment, and she's just like happy to have her baby, and I'm just like,
Yeah, and it was so sweet that like everybody is just like helping out, like Fumiko and I don't know his name,
boyfriend.
something.
He has a name.
He does. It starts with a G.
I
don't
just
know.
in my mind I was just picturing Prince Zuko because she said that the scar on his
The
face
scar on
was
his face
from a
is
burn.
like, yeah, okay, fair
That's
enough.
fair.
It's from
Okay.
a burn, and it
Is
went
it
from his
long-haired
eyebrow
one?
to his.
And he works in a cafe.
And he works in a
now.
cafe.
Maybe he's serving
There you
just
go.
tea. It's fine.
So I can't remember his name,
Uncle
but
Iroh.
they you know, Fumiko is like basically like a big sister to
Yeah.
what's her name?
Miki.
Miki.
It's one of those. I think it's
It starts with an M.
starts
with an M
I
for
think
sure.
it's
It's Miki.
Miki.
Yeah.
Sounds.
So Fumiko is like a big sister to her, and so is Kazu, and
they're all there
everyone is like
pitching in.
raising her.
Oh, and she takes over the job of making the coffee for the people.
Yes. Yeah. So when people go back in time, it's her instead of Kazu now, because
Which sets it up perfectly because she has to be there
yeah,
Yeah.
when that happens. And I was like, oh, they were smart.
it's so cute
Very sweet.
and just a lovely little book, and it just sort of brings everybody together
Yes.
at the end.
Yeah, it's like those movies, like Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah, where like
there's-
everyone is
There's
interconnected.
like the 4 different stories that are happening at the same time, and then like at the end they all come together, and it's like, holy crap,
Which
they're all
one's
connected.
the one where, is it Colin Firth is the prime minister? Is it
Oh,
Colin Firth?
Hugh Grant is the prime minister. Colin Firth is in that movie.
That's
That's
right.
Love Actually.
That's
Actually,
right. That one's
yeah.
questionable. But I was like, why is the prime minister so heavily involved with like this little tiny
Yeah,
family?
mhm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's his sister.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird.
But yeah, it's like that, and then at the end everyone's together, and
It's like, aw, I feel kind of good about that.
yeah, it was cute.
Yeah, so
irrelevant.
happiness happens, but
So
like
sweet.
also sadness because that's just life. Life is like that, right?
And that is like the overall lesson you were supposed to learn from like all of these, because like Kay at the end kind of like goes through it in her brain and is like, we all learned that the present is unchangeable, but the future is ours to
Like
do
still-
with what we will.
Yeah, so like you have to learn from whatever happens that
Mm-hmm.
you can't change and then just use it to hopefully better yourself, which is the case for all of the other women.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Kay's like, I'm going to do that too. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Sobbing,
yeah.
just so lovely. My number one, wait, should we start with first impressions?
Throw your opinions out and we'll figure it out.
One of my number one things in fiction when we're dealing with time travel is the rules.
Yeah,
I love the rules, and I absolutely love when the present can't change. Or alternatively, there are like 2 ways that I will accept, time travel nonsense. Number 1, if nothing about the present changes, everything is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2, if there is like an equal, like
like a trade-off.
a trade-off, if there is a trade-off. So
Oh.
for example, spoilers, if anyone has not seen season 5 of Smallville, this was my favorite thing to ever happen in fiction about time travel.
That's
Clark
like
Kent.
a long time ago.
Yes,
so
I
I
know.
hope to God.
If you were gonna see it, don't watch it right now because I mentioned Smallville, okay? And this is gonna be a spoiler. So Clark is going about his daily life, and his girlfriend gets into a car accident and dies, and he freaks out because he's like, I don't know,
He's like a
18
teenager
or
in that,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. And he like loses his mind. And he goes up because he's Superman and asks his alien father man in the Fortress of Solitude, like, please bring her back. Please do something. And Jor-El is like, well, you may not like what happens. And he's like, no, it's fine. I will do anything to bring her back. So then the entire episode goes exactly the same way, except at the moment that she would have been in that car accident, his adopted father keels over from a heart attack and dies and cannot come back. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I know
That is what we need to do. That is exactly the thing. Because it's not, you can't do that. You can't
So
just
how do you cope with Doctor Who?
um
Just timey-wimey bullshit?
just irrelevant.
Got it.
I can't put any thought. It's too fun of a show that
Yeah.
I'm not going to put any thought into how that
It
works
hurts my brain
it
because
does.
I'm like, don't think about it too much. It's better
No,
that way.
that's the thing. I just have to fully put all rules about time travel out of my brain. Because I actually, like, the only quote that I wrote down for this was, I think it was Hirai. She was impressed with the airtight nature of the cafe's rules. And I said, cheers, babe. Me too.
I like to think of it in a way that's like I can't think of an example, but like when you go back in time, you've always gone back in time.
Yes.
So like even the first time it happens, you were there. So you're not changing anything because you were already there. And so that's how I like to think about it.
I think about that all the time when I watch time travel stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
but you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and that's like a lot of Doctor Who. That's kind of what I think is going on. Or
Sure.
if they weren't always there, they're taking out the thing that came there and shouldn't have been there.
Right.
Yes.
So then they're
Understood.
correcting, course
Yeah,
correcting
yeah.
to like make sure that the stuff happens.
That's fair.
Yeah. I just can't think about it.
Yeah,
I try.
but yeah.
But
So
I-
that's what I think is like. Fumiko was always in the past from the future, and she walks out of the cafe, and then the boyfriend goes over and talks to her from the future her. Always. That's
Always.
always what happened.
Okay. That makes
So
sense.
there's no like fallacy or anything.
I just, I love those rules.
Yeah.
I love that everything is clear cut. I do want to read the rest of them because I am interested to see how some of the rules, like, we didn't test a lot of rules,
Yeah.
you know? And I would be interested. I am very interested in the ghost lady.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in the curse of the ghost to see what happens if it gets pushed off. Mostly I have a lot of questions about the ghost.
Yeah.
I want to see her background. I want to see what happens when someone else turns into the ghost. I want to see, or what happened when she turned into the ghost. I want to see what happens with the curse of the ghost. I got a lot of ghost questions.
I want to know why she was so intent on staring at Kay when she was like trying to figure out if she was going to the past or not. And like she seems to like deliberately get up at that time, which most times she can't really decide.
That's true. She
Well, which story is it that they just like force
Hirai.
feed her?
That was
Hirai.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Because she
They
always
force coffee upon
yeah,
her.
Kazu always just like comes over when her coffee cup is like empty and says like, "Would you like a refill?" And she says, "Yes, please." But then when Hirai, because Hirai knows all about the rules, she like knows that she just has to wait for this, but she is not a patient person. So she's like,
We gotta make
Kazu-
this bitch go to the bathroom now.
she's just like, I want her to move. Blah, blah, blah. And Kazu is just like, okay. So she walks
9
over.
cups in.
She just walks over and she says, you know, would you like a refill? And she says, yes, please. Pours it in. And then she says, would you like a refill? Girl shoots it. And she's like, yes, please. And then takes it. And she just like keeps standing there until she's like, okay, I have to pee like right now.
9 cups of coffee.
It's ridiculous, but
It's
works.
a ghost. So we don't know about like
Bodily
Ghost.
functions.
bodily functions.
That's why I was like, so why does she have to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, and like that's
Somebody asked that. And then they were just like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about
they just say like that's the rule.
it. Yep.
All
she's
right,
gonna
got
Which
go.
is like another thing that brings up a lot of questions about the ghost is she's physically there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can touch
You can
her.
touch her and she can touch you, and if she touches you, yikes.
That's bad.
That's bad. She'll curse you and then you are paralyzed
To the
Yeah.
ground.
to the ground, paralyzed, and just like face against the floor. What's happening?
Yeah.
That happens to Fumiko in the first story.
first story, yeah.
She tries to grab the ghost to
Very agitated woman.
yeah. But yeah, I want to know more of the lore.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And how did they figure out that that's the chair and that's the place and who did it first? And
That's actually a really solid point. I'm just like, hey, this is happening. I was like, no, wait. There's like a whole backstory that we
because
don't
the
learn
cafe
anything.
opened in like 1817 or something.
Yeah, it's like old and it's just been kind of left there.
Yeah, and untouched, and they added electricity, but they've never added air conditioning. But it's always cool.
But it's always cool.
And like, what's going on?
I want to
Is it
know.
ley lines? Is it?
And I wonder
Yeah.
if they ever really do approach it at all. There is a TV show. So they created a live action adaptation.
Well, this started as a play.
Oh, really?
The very first iteration was a play,
I did not know that.
and then it was made into a book, and then it was translated into English. So what year was this?
Apparently, the TV show is very well received.
Oh.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is it in English or is it in Japanese?
Japanese. So when I was just quickly searching it up, that's what came up was the TV show, and I was like, oh,
Drake
I wonder
told
how
me.
this gets
Yeah.
portrayed.
Drake does random research on these things sometimes because he's just like, oh, okay, because he hears me talk about them a lot. So he said, yeah, he was the one that told me it started as a play in 2010, was adapted into this novel in 2015, translated in 2019.
Okay.
So yeah, it did, because I was saying that like, oh, well, there's like basically each section is like a little vignette where like you have like these characters and we see this whole thing. And he was like, yeah, that's because it was a play.
That
I was
makes
like,
a
okay,
lot
why
of
do you know
sense
this?
a lot of
now.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like it really does feel, and that's why like the characters, there are only X number of people in the cafe, and they then become important because like Kataki was there for like all of these things. She was just like sitting there drinking coffee until it was her turn to be the main character, and same with Harai, and you know, Fumiko leaves and comes back, and she was there during. She was there in one of them.
She was
Hirai's
there.
or
Yeah, I think it was
yeah.
that one because I was like, oh, hey, bye, hello.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
And it's just because, like, well, you have the cast of X number of people, and we better use them.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and Fumiko's
makes
the one who brings up. She's like, so, like, can we go to the future?
yeah.
And I was like, how
she
convenient.
asks- yeah. She asks during Hirai's, I think, and then so that we, the audience, get to hear all the reasons that you can't go into the future right before Kay decides to go into the future anyway.
Yep.
But then we don't have to, you know, bog down Kay's section with those questions because we just did that.
Yeah. Smart
Yeah.
writing.
So, yeah, definitely once I found out it was a play, I was like, yeah, okay,
It
this makes sense.
definitely, yeah. And I could also like I could picture everything very clearly.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
I was like,
there's,
here's my
like-
cafe.
There's
Yeah.
the
This is how
set.
it's
I
set.
can
Yeah.
see.
And I love the way that they describe the cafe as like having a permanent like stain of sepia.
Yeah.
So everything is just always in sepia. I love
lovely.
that.
My only complaint, and maybe this is me reading into it too much, because I am not an expert on Japanese culture, regardless how much I talk about it. I'm so sorry. I might be a weeb.
She's a weep.
A little bit. My only complaint is that like when they do the direct translation, instead of like Bear the Nightingale, where they left in words that were actually from the native language, you lose the interaction of whenever someone comes in. It's not just like a hey, welcome. It's actually like a whole phrase they use depending on the time of day. It's a different formality.
Yeah.
You also lose some of the sounds that they just make. So like they have very expressive sounds that are just like filler, but it's not something that we find important. If anything, we're just like,
Yeah,
it's but
I
it's
feel
really
like
not.
once or twice there was like an A,
Yeah.
but that's it. There
it's
wasn't
like- Oh.
very often.
yeah, I was just like, oh, it would have been nice if they had just kept in like this, like some of the wording.
Yeah, I agree. I had one complaint, and that was that there's a cat in the photo, and there was no cat in the book.
That,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking about that this morning because I think in the last episode Tia mentioned that.
I do.
She was like, there's a cat on the cover. I don't know if that's important or not.
It wasn't.
It's
It
not.
wasn't.
I know.
wasn't.
upset.
It's like a little Susie looking cat, like a big fluffy black void cat, and there is no cat in this.
What
I
we
know.
don't know is the cat is the reason they travel back in time and comes and lays
We're gonna
a
find
paw.
that in the second book, maybe the third. It's gonna be very important. I probably will end up listening to the others,
Yeah.
just because this was very delightful.
And it was short, and it was
short.
just like a nice little like reprieve.
Yeah.
And like also heartbreaking, but like lovely at the same time.
Yeah.
Just like so sweet and written very interestingly. It had like the vibes of a book that I will say was so good. If you want a good cry, read this book. It's called The Traveling Cat Chronicles,
Yeah, you told me about that.
and it
I'm not
is
mentally prepared for that.
heartbreaking. It's from the perspective of this like very pretentious little cat who gets adopted and is like, this is my human, whatever. And then the human is like taking him around places, and this is going to be a spoiler because you need to know before you read it. It becomes increasingly clear that he is taking the cat places to see who will adopt him when the human dies because he has like cancer, I think. But it just slowly becomes obvious that that's what's happening, but like nobody really vibes that well with the cat. But then it's like the cat is like then has to deal with, because the end of the book, he does go to another house, and you have to know why that is. Anyway,
That sounds so sad.
it's so fun, and like the cat is so fun. The perspective of the cat, because he is sort of haughty, you know.
I'm imagining the little white cat from the Aristocats.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
How she's all like prim and
yeah.
proper.
But like,
I'm always gonna finish a fight.
yeah, it's like that. But like, think about how Napoleon would narrate that cat.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
This is Love Mate.
Napoleon is a cat of mine who has passed. If you don't know who Napoleon is, and Napoleon was like named after the emperor, not Napoleon Dynamite. He was named after the Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, and for reason, because he was very royal, but also snuggly as hell.
Yeah.
You would walk into the house and you would be like, "Hello, pet me," you know.
And everyone just did.
And everyone
Yeah.
did, yeah, because he deserved it. So
did.
he was like,
a good cat.
What a good
like
cat.
it's like that in the body of that fluffy little white cat. So like, just imagine that, and it's so heartwarming, and also you will sob, and like this book did not make me cry as much. But it, you know, it's lovely in the same way. It's like sort of told as little vignettes, just like this one was. It super fun. Anyway, that was the book that sort of came to mind, not just both because they were written by Japanese people, but
Oh, I didn't know that.
it is, yeah, it's Japanese.
Cool.
Um,
Oh, we could have read that one. Not that we
No.
regret reading this one at all. This
no,
one was great.
I thought about that, and then I was like, I'm not going to do that to these guys. You guys can read that on your own
No.
if you want to.
Okay, that's fair. Because, like I mentioned, it's been rough out here.
I know.
That's what I liked about this. Even though it was sad, it's like everything had like a nice little soft ending.
It
and was
is,
like,
and it like
here.
it gives you hope. It's supposed to. It's like the future. The future is yours to make.
And we all need a little hope right now.
All need a little hope right now. No, I thought this was fantastic, and this is the first book. I think we said this last time, but I don't think we talked about it this time. This is the first one that not one of us has read.
That is, yes. Correct.
For this book club, because I have read every single
single
other
one.
book.
It's between me
Before.
and Ryan whether or not we've read.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not my fault.
No.
Because you hadn't even read one that you picked. You had never read
The Bear and
Bear and the Nightingale, but I had.
What was my other one?
Oh, maybe.
The
oh no,
Things She's Seen. I
the
didn't
things
read.
she's
Yeah, you didn't read
seen.
that one.
I didn't read.
I had read that one.
You had read that one.
I
that
haven't
was
read
the only one.
any of the books that we've read.
Yeah. So
That's
this
fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you, Ryan, for being
this
our
is the second
experiment.
one that I haven't read, but you read the first one I hadn't read. The things
This
she's
is
seen.
the second one I haven't read.
This is the second one you haven't read.
Because the Bear and the Nightingale I hadn't read either.
Yeah. Well, had you read Unmarriageable?
Oh, shit. Okay. Third one.
Word.
I forgot that
and
we read that.
No, because you hadn't read Here the whole time either. Calm down.
Listen! I haven't read things.
You're just lying to the
I
public.
am. I'm so sorry. I'm
How
lying.
dare you?
But I have read 23
You
books
have read a lot.
this year.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
That's a
Jesus
lot.
Christ.
Where am I at?
How many have we recorded this year? 4?
This
This is the third.
This is 3. I've read
It's
3
March.
books this year.
Where am I at?
I've just
But
been
this
like
is-
back to back to
wait.
back to back.
We were.
I've read 28
Oh
this
yeah,
year.
because we recorded January and December. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is the 3rd book.
Correct.
Damn.
Yep.
Welcome. Who's next?
I think it's me.
It's Ryan.
No, that sounds right. What are we?
A Man Called
reading?
Ove
Oh,
That's
that
right.
one.
by Frederick Bachman.
Have
For
you-
what country is that?
Sweden.
Okay.
Have y'all?
I have
read
never
it?
read that.
And you haven't, right?
No.
This is one you've wanted to read.
I've wanted to read for a
cool.
long time.
This is another book that none of us have read. Oh, look at us. Is it gonna be sad?
Oh
though?
wow, it's just available to.
I don't know. I don't know if it's that. I know that it was extremely popular.
Wasn't it?
It
Wait,
was
it made
very
into
popular.
something like a movie?
I think
It has been a
was.
movie
What is it? Man, what
called Ove.
There it is.
Yeah,
Oh,
2015
it is
movie.
available. The Hail. Oh, it's got Tom Hanks that plays it.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they changed it to A Man Called Otto for the movie.
Yeah. Oh, that's weird. I
There
don't
was
like
one in
that.
2022 with Tom Hanks, and then there was one called A Man Called Ove in 2015.
Original title: En man som heter Ove.
I trust
Fair
you.
enough.
It is published in Swedish. It is written by a Swede.
Fantastic.
It
That's
is
what we want.
Swedish in all
Swedish
aspects.
fish is not
And
Swedish. I
and
don't
Swedish
think.
fish.
I love Swedish fish. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was written in 2012, published in English in 2014. It was on the bestseller list forever, and pretty much all of this man's books were also, because there was like,
This is so much more information
I don't
that we
know.
ever have
I don't
on
know,
any
I'm
of the
just
books.
pulling on my Barnes & Noble memory, because there was like,
Yeah.
ask my grandmother to tell you I'm sorry, or
Yeah.
something.
I can
tell my
picture-
grandmother I asked you to tell her I'm sorry.
I can picture all of these books because,
Yeah.
yes, did work at Barnes & Noble. And I can picture them all on the shelf.
Yep.
And I have never read any of them.
My grandmother asked me to tell you she's sorry.
There we go.
That's what it's called.
I'm not sorry. She's sorry.
Beartown is another one.
Beartown is the
Anxious
one that I
People,
remember.
yeah.
What day is it?
Oh,
gonna
Oh.
right. Shit.
There's a day that this will come out, and
Not this one. The
not
next one.
this one, but the one with
'Cause
the man
you-
called Ove.
You've already heard this.
Yeah, and that
You
day,
already know what day this is.
that day is April 30th.
April 30th.
Join us on April 30th for Man
For-
Called Ove
By
With
Frederick Bachman.
Ryan hosting.
Yay.
with Ryan and also Frederick Bachman. Can you imagine?
If we just like,
The ADHD Queens gets Frederick Bachman for no reason.
Just our first guest. That's not just a
all of our
human we
listeners
know.
are on Earth. How do we get?
All right. Okay.
Anyway,
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
joining us.
See
see you next time. See you next time.
The suppression, the use of marijuana.
This podcast was brought to you in part by KCUN
Yeah, we could say that.
Please tell me you recorded that.
89.3 FM KCUN.
Perfect.